subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, Allah subhanahu in the Quran, half of the Quran, Allah will protect the Quran. No, for example, if I recite Surah Al-Fatiha, the kids here, if I recite Surah Al-Fatiha wrong, the kids will fix my life. That means the Quran is completely revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we got the Quran from Rasulullah. We don't care about that. So sorry, I don't want to go. We're not going to mention that. It's not important. Now let's speak of the most important topic with Brother Youssef, inshallah. Ibrahim.
I was actually going to mention this guy right here at the beginning, not by his name. I won't give him famous, but I want to mention some of the motivations that we've seen and why and where they come from.
Agree.
But as the brother pointed out, I mean, we are the only group on the face of this earth that can say if you burned every single physical hard copy of our holy book, it would be back in 2 minutes. I mean, it would be back. If I burned every copy of the King James Bible, is there someone out there who can say they've memorized the King James Bible? I mean, there are people who've read it maybe tens of thousands of times, but you don't have one single. I've never seen a Christian or a Judaism recitation tournament like we have Quranic, where you have 5-year-old kids reciting the Quran with perfect tajweed. I mean, let them burn it. But we're going to talk about some of the motivations today. So I'd like to say Assalamu alaikum, of course, to the Sunnahfollowers and to the people we have here today. Thank you for your turnout. And we just want to continue to grow and grow the message, grow and grow the deen, reach out to as many people as possible. I've got a very good presentation tonight because this one's kind of very close to me for my personal journey. I don't like to talk about myself too often. And so far in these, I really haven't. I'm going to use myself as a couple of examples tonight to show, I mean, I've been on both sides of this issue. I've been on the Islamophobic side, and I've been on the victim of Islamophobia side. So we're going to be exploring some of the roots of Islamophobia, a word that didn't even exist, really, you can say, until the last 5 to 10 years. And we are going to go through a lot of individuals and a lot of the motivations for why now we're sitting here today trying to prepare our brothers and sisters to handle these challenges, because you're going to face it. I'm going to share some stories of comments that have been made to me, some rude comments, some hateful comments that have been made to me, some things that I've read over the years. And also, too, in the end, we're going to talk about what we as Muslims sometimes do to make this problem worse. We are not completely victimless here. There are some Muslims who go into new countries as immigrants and do not behave properly, and they don't give the deen in the correct way. We're going to talk about them. I call them Muslim in name only. His name may be Muhammad or Ahmed, but he's not acting like the Sunnah. He's not following Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes. And we're going to talk about some of those and how the Western media is so quick to say this guy right here, he's Muslim because his name is Ahmed. He's a drug dealer. Look, Muslims are drug dealers. His name is Ahmed. Proof. Hardly. Do we ever hear them say, when you see a rapper or a rock star promoting heroin use or whatever, wearing a Christian cross, oh, that guy's following Jesus? We never hear that. You know, we never hear it when some athlete wears a Christian cross around his neck and then gets caught with improprieties and all kinds of other things, infidelities. We never hear that. Yeah. But we as Muslims are expected to apologize and accept the blame for every low-level person around the world who just happens to be born a Muslim. And we're going to look at the motivations, obviously, for that and why. Got to get used to looking over here, so I'm not always looking away from that camera. No, I mean for the Sunnahfollowers, because the camera last time was here, so I don't want to not ever be looking at them when we're talking. Yeah. So what have we seen in recent times as we're going to break this thing down? We're going to look at 3 phases today. We are going to look at fear. We are going to look at the accusations of racism. And finally, we are going to end with healing and what we can do as Muslims to better project the deen. But the first 2 are really, we're going to look at the motivations for Islamophobia driven out of racial reasons. We're going to break that down. Second point, first point, we're going to break down the fear, which is perpetuated by a lot of the individuals I'm going to talk about today. I will not mention their names because I don't want to give them free press, but I will talk about their acts and their deeds, so to speak. So recently we saw this great young man, or whatever he was, in Sweden. He decided not only was he going to burn a Quran, but he was going to burn a Quran when? The first day of Eid? Yeah. And where? In front of an Islamic center. And you know what this is called? I have a term for it. It's called baiting. If I went to my brother's house right here and I started talking bad about his daughters to him, I think he might use his black belt karate on me pretty quickly, wouldn't he?
Absolutely.
I think he might be justified for that, wouldn't he? You expect to go to a place where we are minding our own business and praying, trying to become one with God, and you want to desecrate our holy book and the memory of a man who we deem as the best human being that ever lived, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is equivalent to talking bad about your mother, about your father, and about any loved one, in our family. You are disrespecting the essence of who we are as a being. And you expect not to have any type of anger or recourse. Oh, look, they're violent. They got mad. We burned and spit in their holy book and we made fun of them and all these type of things. No human being of any kind of conviction is going to accept such, deeds. If you're trying to have a discourse with us, you show up like a gentleman and you intellectually lay your information out and we calmly discuss the issues. Most of the time we'll find out they're wrong, of course, but what they're doing again is trying to bait a reaction. The first time we saw this was with the cartoons depicting our messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, back in Holland. I think it was in 2006. And there was a cartoonist of Jewish origin, and he decided that what it looked like fun, that he was going to go and depict the messenger as a terrorist with a bomb, as a turban, and all these things with no accurate quotes to represent his ideology, just simply, this is who he is. Then you saw Charlie Hebdo in France, and those cartoons depicting our messenger are so bad, I'm not even going to mention them. I went online and looked them up and was just like, wow. I mean, it wasn't intellectual, it was smut. That's the word we use in the West. It was just pure shock, filth, with the sole intent of getting a reaction. So again, they can say, look, they're angry. They're violent people. Again, it's the same as disrespecting a family. And that brings us again to the free speech issue, doesn't it? In the West, we hold free speech to be cherished because it's a right to criticize our government. But at the same time, you should not be using your speech to openly hurt people and not expect any consequences. I have a free right to go to my brother's house here and disrespect his family, but he also has the free right to defend the honor of his family. So when you have it, it goes both ways, but I don't want to see someone feel that we're talking in the Islamic community about eliminating the right to criticize a leader, criticize the government constructively, of course, because that's not what we are setting out to do. Right. We are talking about being debate. You never see, at least to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, any Muslim burning the Bible. I cannot recall seeing a story like that, where a group of Muslims went to a Christian church and desecrated their holy book. I don't recall. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe one guy one time worked for the CIA or something, happened to do that, but I can't say I've ever seen it. There's a right way and a wrong way. We see what's happening in India. For those of you who are not familiar, it's bad. You have this President Modi. You have on television openly depicting Muslim men as savages, as rapists, as animals. Things like that. You're seeing Muslims kicked out of whole entire areas, of India. You're seeing major culture clashes because of the cow. The cow is sacred, obviously, in India. And Muslims, we obviously eat red meat. We're allowed it. It's permissible. So you're going to have some issues there. And you have an issue of coexistence, you can say. We have what's happening in China. If I pronounce this correctly, the Uyghurs.
Uyghurs, yes.
This is Islamophobia record 10 times 10. They were forcing these people into camps and making them drink alcohol. Imagine, if you want someone to not be a member of a certain religion, is this the way to do it? Or is this about humiliation? Is this about saying we are the conquerors and you are going to adhere, to our way? And of course, China looks at Islam as a threat to its totalitarian state because the state is God in communist societies. They have a caste system. Peasants are not allowed to visit certain areas, from what I've read. Islam obviously preaches human rights and equality and taqwa under God. It's a real clash there. So some of the intro we were seeing here of all these different cases, there are men on social media and the internet, I don't know how they make money because all they're doing is bashing Islam. And now their new thing is they will get an Arab guy. And it's like, look, we got one. It's proof Islam is not real. And they will have an Arab gentleman who knows the Arabic language to come out and do videos with them and say the most horrific things about the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about the Quran, about all these things. Like I said, I wonder how they make money. And that really begs the question, doesn't it? Who's paying these people and what's going on? So as I highlighted, we are going to be getting into the reasons, both from a governmental level as well as down to the human level, of why we are seeing, especially in modern times, this Islamophobia is increased. The first, fear. Anytime, if you look back in human history and you look at a war where you've had two sides having a clash, you will see the governments of both those countries will depict the others and they will dehumanize them, depict them in the most unfavorable light. This started in this country back in the late 90s, early 2000s, because obviously, not to get into too much politics, there was an agenda for the Middle East and there were people in the way. And in order to get the American sons and daughters to sign up to fight, you have to make those people look bad, don't you? You have to say, hey, look, they're coming for you. Coming. They're going to take your freedom. They hate your way of life. These were all the parroting that was going on during that time frame in the media. And this is the first time I heard of this particular, this is the first actual Quranic ayah I ever heard, was right here, Surah 9:5. And we'll talk about how they misrepresented. The Surah 9:5 from Surah Tawbah, the repentance, states, when the sacred months have passed, kill them wherever you find them, capture them, besiege them, sit in wait at every place of ambush. But if they should repent, establish prayer, give zakah, let them go their own way. Allah is most forgiving. They never mentioned the second part of the ayah, and they also never mentioned 9:6. And if any one of the polytheists, not even referring to people of the book here, polytheists, the mushrik, seeks your protection, then grant him protection so he may hear the word of Allah. And then it continues, then deliver them to safety. That is because they are a people who don't know. That right there, that line sums up why we're here tonight, because they are a people who don't know, and we are here to help them know. But this right here sums up what I'm referring to. I heard this ayah repeated, and still to this day, slay them wherever you find them. Look, kill all the Christians. It's right here in the Holy Book. They didn't even bother to finish the ayah. They didn't even bother to go to the next ayah. They didn't bother to look at the context. What happened here in Islamic history? Why was this revealed? If you understand what happened with the treaties between the Muslims and the Meccans, and you've gotten that far in your seerah studies, hopefully, inshallah, most people were there on their way, you would understand immediately exactly what time frame, what this is referring to. But this is what was put out. Get everybody angry, get everybody fearful. They're coming here to rape your daughter. They're coming here to enslave you, and they're coming here to kill you because you're not basically a Christian. This was kind of what was put out. And then we had, of course, the big enchilada, September 11th. And I don't have time tonight to go into all of that, but I do talk about September 11th quite in depth for people in private who'd like to hear it. I've researched this case for almost 10 years off and on. We didn't do it, obviously. I think most people in this room are aware of that. There was dark forces at play, and it was a very easy propaganda tool, again, to encourage that. And I still remember where I was on September 11th. I was living with my best friend in Raleigh, North Carolina. And he woke me up in the morning and he said, the Arabs flew planes into the buildings. And I was half asleep and I went, what? And I turned on, there was Fox News, and all day long, like so many Americans, you heard the word bin Laden. You heard the word, this has Islam's fingerprints all over it. You heard all those words. And then we went out later and we were at a fast food place. And there was a guy standing in line with his girlfriend. They had a little TV up. He's like, I hope we turn the whole Middle East into a parking lot. And I was already government conscious at that time. So I'm saying to myself, if my government doesn't want me to like these people, there's probably a reason I should like them. I was already kind of on my way in that journey at that moment. If they're telling me those people are the enemy, and I'm seeing the kind of reaction that this is having, is the intended reaction. It's called problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem. The public has a reaction. They have the solution already ready. The solution was Iraq and Afghanistan. What did they do in Afghanistan? Again, not to get too deep into that, it was about resources and heroin. And most people who've read a little bit wouldn't know that. In Iraq, we obviously know multiple reasons why they went in there, but they had to have that justification, for that. So, of course, Islam was to blame. That got everything, going. So at that point in time, I was a little bit interested because, like I said, I was thinking, because before I didn't like Muslims either. I think I told some the one time I was in Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. I still remember it was 1997, August, hot. And that was the last time I went to Florida. That's how I remember the date so well. Me and my best friend were going to Universal, hanging out, and we saw this woman in the niqab. I didn't know what it was called at the time. And I was like, what kind of oppressive culture enslaves their women like this? That was the first thing I had thought, and I had a very negative, view that she's wearing this niqab by choice, never crossed my mind. So at that moment in time, we're looking like she's a dinosaur, like she's some kind of an alien. What is this? The husband had a whip and he was making her wear this every step of the house. So, my opinions of Islam pre 9/11 were not very favorable. But subhanAllah, Allah always turns it on, because we saw the most conversions we have ever seen in U.S. history in the following 5 years after September 11.
Stop this, Habibti. Stop this, because we can sell this.
So as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, they plotted, but I'm the best. I'm the best. I'll turn everything they try to do on them. They try to portray us as bad. So many people said, I want to pick up that Quran. And then they read this. Wait, that's not what Fox News told me that ayah said. They only mentioned the first sentence. Wait, what else are they lying about? It opens the whole journey for you. And for me, I started having a less unfavorable view of Muslims at the time. I didn't convert yet. I was still 7 years out at this point after I started getting really into 9/11, because I just didn't have the time in my personal life, and religion was not important to me. As growing up as in the secular West, we're so concerned with paying bills and all those things. And when I finally got into it, I was hooked instantly, almost. I went through the same process. I know now why. So we had, of course, September 11th, going back to that. The other concept that they were using, I mentioned this briefly earlier, is through unlimited mass immigration. We are seeing unprecedented movements of people that have not happened in human history outside of wars before. Now, why is this going on? Well, two reasons, obviously. Reason number one is that in the West, due to the propaganda, the anti-family, anti-child, all this environmental crazy nonsense about you got to save the planet, we started having a problem in the 1960s on. You had the sexual revolution all throughout Europe, which was basically having uncommitted, premarital, non-marital relations. And what that did was it lowered the birth rates. So you had a population, we call them in this country the baby boomers, who were born after World War II. And they were not reproducing. They became the most selfish generation in this country's history. Everything was about their retirement, their wealth, them having fun. A lot of them didn't want the responsibility of a family. And we saw their birth rates dropped below replacement levels. In an economy set up like a capitalist economy, you have to have, each generation has to have enough workers to keep the scam going. Once you don't have enough workers, the whole house of cards falls down. So what did they do? They turned to areas where they still had traditional family cultures. They went to the Islamic world. They went to South America and Central America. And obviously they went to Africa to bring these people into Europe and to America to fill this labor void. That was one reason they did it. Another reason they did it was because these people are the masters of creating conflict. And they knew if you bring different cultures in this quickly, this rapidly, and then you feed them this propaganda on both sides that I'm referring to, you are going to have a wedge in the society. Every single time they get a reaction out of Muslims in Europe for the things I talked about earlier, what's the first thing they're doing on Monday morning? They are trying to restrict our rights. They are trying to say, okay, so this doesn't happen again. Everybody should wear a tracking device like they're doing in France. Everybody should have their social media tied to their bank, is the thing that they are imposing now. So they bring in people for one reason, to satisfy a need. Another reason to create conflict. These people thrive in an area of conflict. They thrive with division, breaking people up, keeping people at each other's throats so you don't realize who's running the whole show. And then slowly they just erode and they take your quality of life and your rights. So through that fear, they've been able to, again, whip up, this type of hostility, us against them. Muslims are our enemy. Again, one part of my life, when I was telling the Sheikh earlier today, when I first converted to Islam, I was called a traitor by people who looked like me. They said, "You're white. What is this? Are you a traitor? You want to be Arab?" That was the first thing I heard. Then I told them, then I talked to another guy, they said I wanted to be black. And then I said, well, there's more Asian Muslims than anything. So no one said I want to be Asian. Why is that? The first thing was you want to be Arab. You want to be black. You hate your own people. And I was going through, what about this religion commands me to hate my own people? We're going to talk about who the real racist religion is going further later, when we provide some actual written, documented examples from their holy books, which are openly racist. You will find no such writings in Islam. And I asked a person one time, if a person is into the Bible, or the New Testament more specific, and they memorize and they learn it in Greek, in Aramaic, in the original languages, you call him a scholar. You say, oh, that guy, he wants to know the book in its original language to avoid translation errors. They praise him on end to end for this. But if I want to learn Arabic, to know my holy book in its original language, they say I want to be Arab. I hate my own people. I should be ashamed of myself. Some of the things that I have heard, over the years. It's a complete double standard. There's no sense or no logic in it. There's how many thousands of languages on planet Earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Arabic, in my opinion, just my opinion, because of how easy it is to flow, for what we talked about in the opening, to make this book stick in here and here. If you tried to have a book of the Quran size in English and had no way, just English is not a language like that. So again, that's the wisdom. Allah knows best, as we always must in anything we're uncertain with. But again, going back to that point, I never heard anyone call a Christian guy who learned Aramaic to read the Bible a traitor. I never made it about race. When you go to our masjids, you see everybody's. I could just go to the local churches around here, and I guarantee you're going to find no diversity in there. You're going to find the same ethnic group, and this church is for that group, this church is in that group. Just we took a vacation, me and the family, a few days ago. We got back on Wednesday. And on the way, I saw Korean church. It literally said Korean church. Do you ever drive through the streets of America and see Islamic Mosque of the Arabs? You're never going to see that.
Yeah, I like that.
You're just not. And again, you don't ever hear this being reported in the media, but we are the most inclusive, religion. Believing in a creator doesn't make you a traitor to your own people or any of the such. It was very laughable, like hearing these things. So back to that immigration point, as I was using my story, they never apply this to others. And the Muslim in name only is, again, another weapon that they've used through unlimited mass immigration. I saw they were talking, about some of the rioting that was happening recently in France. And I'm looking at the people and I'm like, none of these people look like people I would see in the masjid. They look like drug dealers, a lot of them. They look like gang members. They don't look like good people. And we have them in every group. They come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. But the media would be like Muslim youth, just again, because they were born in name only. Fear. They're coming to get you. They're going to take your land. They want to take your women and all these type of things. And where are they also getting this from? There was a couple scandals in the late 2000s. It's kind of difficult. We call it the teens from 10 to 20, because we used to call the 80s, the 90s, the 70s. Since we got to this decade, it's kind of difficult. But from the time period of 2000 to 2010, there was a guy in the UK, they used to call him Captain Hook. He was a supposed imam from an Islamic center. I don't know if you saw this beautiful gentleman. And he had a hook for a hand and one eye. And he was preaching in the masjid about the kuffar women belong to you, and go out there and rape them and all that fun stuff that they love. Oh, yeah. And they found out later he worked for the MI6. So literally, this guy was a British intelligence asset posing as an imam in the masjid and saying all these things. And this again is a special place in the darkest corners of the hellfire for this gentleman. But for the people going in there, they're listening to this stuff in the khutbahs, on Fridays. You find a lot of these people over the years, there's a couple of them. All of them were CIA operatives. Just like those guys I talked about earlier, the agitators who were burning the Qurans. All those guys that are on YouTube who have unlimited money, they're all over the world. He's in England one week. Next week, he's in California. Next week, he's, somewhere else. I mean, that's a lot of money. I've flown a lot for business and for personal. And you ain't going to have money like that, being an upper level manager in most Fortune 500 companies. And these guys are flying around. Who's fronting the bill, for them to go around and do these things? So again, that's a major issue we are facing again, is that we are forced by these Islamophobes to accept the responsibility of someone's actions just because they're Muslim in name only. And we'll take another very big example that's been used against Islam time and time again for going on 10 years now. And it was the Rotterdam rape gangs in the United Kingdom. You had a group of gentlemen of Pakistani origin, obviously Muslim in name only, and they were kidnapping and drugging young British girls. And this has been on every media outlet, printing press, television, social media, going on the last 10 years. It has been one of the major talking points against us over the last 10 years. And if you're a person, who's seeing this, can we really blame them sometimes for being this view towards us if they've never seen an alternative? And MSNBC and BBC is saying Muslim rape gang, drugs and kidnaps underage girls. And then they play Captain Hook over here and clips of him in the masjid saying the things that he was saying. Unbelievable. And we have to start learning how to think like they do. Sometimes they say what's black is white, and what's white is black. Appearances are not reality, oftentimes. There was another one of these attacks recently to whip up fear. And I swear this was the most staged thing I'd ever seen in my life. I can't prove it. Allah knows best. But there was supposedly an angry Muslim man who had a knife. I think this was in England as well. And he was going around a playground trying to stab people. Well, they released a video of this. I watched the video. And I tell you, it looked like some of the worst acting I've ever seen. And if anyone's familiar with U.S. history, there was an operation in the 1960s called Operation Northwoods. Operation Northwoods was where the United States government was going to shoot down a fake plane and blame it on Fidel Castro. They had mock funerals, they had mock graves, and fake human beings created to be the victims of this supposed tragedy. And all of it was, again, to whip up, hostility toward Castro in Cuba. They have been using this with crisis actors over the last 40 to 50 years. There was the guy in the Florida school. They've got him on video out in California talking about an unrelated shooting 2 years prior. Same guy, different name. They use these people and they move them around. And they do this, again, to whip up fear, to create division. And our Christian neighbors are seeing these things. And again, can we really blame them sometimes? We have to be the person that shows them, the right way. We're going to talk about that as we go on here. But any questions so far before we go to part 2 about part 1, fear campaign? Okay. Second point builds on the first.
Sunnahfollowers. Sunnahfollowers. Any question about this? What the brother Youssef just said? Sunnahfollowers.
No questions yet.
Okay.
The second section is Islamophobia is partially based on racism. Let's be honest. We are in the West where everything is taught about race. When I went to the Middle East for the first time, my wife and her family were laughing at me because I wanted to write on the forms white as the nationality, because all my life that's what I was told to put. Because in America, we identify you by the color of your skin. You write white, you write black. It used to be when I grew up, you wrote other if you were Hispanic or Asian origin. Now they've got a lot more on there.
In the passport.
Yeah.
The passport, American passport, white, and others.
Yeah. So, I mean, all my life, you're white. This guy's black. This guy is other, or Hispanic. And again, when you have that type of mentality, and Muslims, because they are a very diverse group, they all come in, they appear to be, of course, to the white society, which these immigrants are coming, we were talking about earlier, they're non-white. This is a racist religion. Why don't I see any more whites? And a lot of the reason for that is because you do see quite a few white Muslims. You go to places like Afghanistan, you go to Eastern Europe, there's a lot in Russia, in the Chechens, you have a lot of Albanians. Here, there's plenty of Caucasian, Muslims, but it's just something, again, that the media doesn't show because it's division. They want it to appear as an anti-white, non-white religion. So white people immediately see it, they turn it off. And as I mentioned, being called a traitor, oh, you want to be Arab, or you want to be black, or you don't like your own people for simply following a religion that tells me all people are equal in the eyes of God, and that we have an obligation to look at everybody as a brother. I thought that was supposed to be what liberal America claims to believe. But still, we see these issues. So, to call Islam a racist religion is one of the funniest things when you really think about it. When you look at how many hadith, when you look at who famous Muslim scholars were, Imam Bukhari, Uzbekistan, was not Arab. Was he not an Arab?
Muslim also.
Yeah, Muslim. You have Ibn Taymiyyah.
Abu Hanifa.
Yeah.
Imam Abu Hanifa.
You cannot find a more diverse collection of thinkers, scholars, prominent figures in any religion than ours. It really is a religion that represents every human being on this planet. You look at the diversity we have here in Myrtle Beach, the diversity we have on our calls. To call us a racist religion really is you're expecting your audience to be poorly informed or unread, because all they've got to do is really spend less than a day studying Islam or the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they're going to immediately determine that's completely not the case. But what do our opponents say about race in their holy books? I don't know if a lot of you guys are familiar with the New Testament, if you ever picked up a copy. When you get the New Testament, you open it up. The first 4 books of the New Testament are known as the Gospels. And the first gospel that you see is the Gospel of Matthew. But what does Matthew say in chapter 15, verses 21 to 28? This was where a Syro-Phoenician woman, she approaches Jesus with a sick daughter. She says to him, basically, can you please, I heard you're a miracle worker. Can you please heal my daughter? Well, what did they record? Jesus is saying, it is not right to take the children's bread and feed it to the dogs. Right here, you have supposedly, again, we know in Islam better, and Allah knows best. Isa never said these words. But right here, recorded in their holy book, he's saying, I give the bread to the children of Israel. You people are dogs. And literally referred to all non-Jews as dogs right there in the first book of the New Testament. This is also repeated in similar later in other of the gospel accounts. So do you ever hear any Christian guy explain this or even mention this in Sunday service? I went to church for 12 years. I was raised Christian. I didn't go that often because my family wasn't very religious. But we went on the special holidays and we went with aunts and uncles came. I never heard them read this verse. And I wanted to look up some explanations of this again, just to have my memory fresh before I began the presentation tonight. And what did I find them saying? Oh, that's a parable. Parables are based in reality. Parables are you take 2 objects and you relate them to real life. You are using a dog and applying it to a human being here. That's the essence of this parable. You are referring, there's no way that you can misconstrue this as anything but a racist statement. So these are the same people that call us a racist religion. Again, unread, as Allah said in that ayah I read earlier, they do not know. They are not educated. They condemn with condemnation, as I often like to say, condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance. When you go out and you condemn somebody and you haven't read anything, Just a few weeks ago, I was watching this brother Sheikh Uthman from California. Is Uthman Ibn Farouk? You ever heard of him? One Message Foundation. He does a lot of street interviews, street dawah.
Yeah.
There was a guy there yelling at him. He's like, in Saudi Arabia, you don't let women leave the house. And he started laughing. I started laughing. And I'm like, where did this guy, A, get this? B, feel that he could openly speak about it? I don't know nothing about cars. You ask me about what kind of engine is in that Dodge, whatever outside, I'm telling you, I sit this one out, brother, because I ain't going to help you on no car. I stay away from areas I don't know anything about. I don't go there. You know, this guy was he's arguing, he's getting heated, he's yelling. He's like, you guys lock women in the house. You guys whip women with whips in the street. He's just saying all these things. And it's like, what, where? Where did you see this? Where did you observe it? But again, they do not know. They know not, so to speak. They have no problem making these statements. But going back to the parable of the doll, could we imagine Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that? No, absolutely not. Nothing even similar, to that could we have said, Did he say anything similar? No. The only thing we ever heard was taqwa, was what separates man. It does not matter where you're from, poor, rich, skinny, fat, tall, doesn't matter. It's what's in your heart that determines the measure of your man or womanhood. So closing off, the allegations of racism are very real. There is a huge racial component to Islamophobia that we have to understand. But again, can we blame the people? Like I said, when you have crisis actors and you have depictions in the media, you have gentlemen like that guy I just mentioned who felt confident enough to say things that he saw on some YouTube blogger. This guy said Islam does that. He's on YouTube. And that's, again, I don't want to get too much into that one because we really, as a people, all of us, are losing our way when we go to Google. And Sheikh always likes to say, Sheikh Google. We go to Google, we go to YouTube to listen to some dude. We don't even know who this guy is. We don't know what his credentials are. He's out there with a thob and he's looking nice and he's quoting hadith and he's quoting Quran. Then he says Allah is in everything.
Yeah.
And those arguments.
Allah, that's very important. Alhamdulillah, you are going online also. A lot of shuyukh, actually, beautiful voices, beautiful Quran recitation. But subhanallah, I mentioned that khutbah al-Jum'ah. They are deceiving people. Big time. We have to be careful with that. We have to be careful about those people. The knowledge is not from those kind of people. Not Sheikh Google or Sheikh Siri. From اسألوا على الذكر إن كنتم speaking to the people of knowledge if you don't know. The people, not Sheikh Google. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Great input. Because what he was talking about with the beautiful voices is kind of off topic. We got a little bit of time. Voices are very powerful. We'll talk about music when you come back, inshallah. I want to do a lecture in here with me and the Sheikh.
By the way, I'm leaving to Mexico. So Sunnahfollowers. I'm going to Mexico Tuesday, inshallah. Honeymoon. I'm going for a honeymoon after many years. 20 years.
Renewing the vows,
Yeah, inshallah. But it's still Saturday also we have a lecture with Sheikh Abu Anas, inshallah. Right? Continue, inshallah.
But yeah, we were talking about beautiful voices, and one of the tricks of the shaitan, is always the shaitan. People have this image, and you see it depicted in the West. I should have talked about this last week, but we had a lot going on there. But we always imagine the shaitan is ugly. The things that shaitan promotes at face value as being ugly, no. The shaitan makes the ugly beautiful. He beautifies the ugly. And one of the ways they do that is with a voice. I remember there was a song that my mother and my father was a big, mother and father were big fans of the Beatles. And there was one of the members of the Beatles, his name was George Harrison. And he sang a song where he was humming My Sweet Lord, Hallelujah, which is a Christian phrase. So he's singing Hallelujah a couple of times. And then the final verse, he changes it. And he sings the same rhythm. And he goes, Hare Krishna. And he's right there, got the Christians. God, yeah, this is a famous song. And it's like, I'm listening to this and I'm like, this is a classic example of mind control. You are getting the audience to hum and jive with a certain song with what they feel is a message that relates to their faith. And all of a sudden, in the end, you trick them and you have them committing shirk, which for their perspective, So that's just one thing reminded me when you're talking about a beautiful voice and being prepared for this type of stuff, because the shaitan is the master of beautifying. So last part of Islamophobia, we went through the fear and the racism, and that is basically the overall healing. Because the main purpose of this is not to draw anger. It was to get everybody, especially the young ones who are going to school now, to understand why people have these harboring this resentment to you. It's not really their fault when everything they turn on is showing them these images. We have to be able to educate them on these images.
Yes.
When these images get asked, and undoubtedly they will, oh, you guys blow up things. Oh, really? Can you show me an example of when that actually has been proven to happen? Says who? Oh, well, the government. Well, the same government that told you this and this and this. I mean, we have to be prepared with the right strategy. And another one is just being dignified, always answering with respect, not raising our voices. We handle ourselves the way the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. When Christians came to visit him, what did he do? He invited them to pray, to come inside. They had a gentlemanly discussion. He explained Islam to them. They had a little, you could say, a mini debate at the time, but everything was done cordially. We are commanded always to stay cordial, to always stay friendly. So I will be doing Muslim health here soon, where we're going to be focusing on building our bodies, eating right, looking good, feeling good, being positive role models for our children in our community. One of those people I talked about, who said I was a traitor. This one didn't actually use the word traitor. This one just went, wow. It was a lady when I told her I was Muslim. In the end, she said, you're not like what I thought those people were at all. And I started laughing. I said, well, most of us aren't. And it made a difference because she said, you're honest. One time, ironic, I found her credit cards were left in the company bathroom, and I returned them, as I always would. She wasn't used to that because most places in America, unfortunately, you leave your money or your credit card somewhere, it's gone. But again, being on it, good behavior. I didn't do it because I fear Allah. I did it because it's the right thing to do, But we have to always show who we are. We have to aspire to be like the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and understand again the motivations of this anger and this hostility. And that's how we ultimately can heal, because in the end of the day, just like that ayah said, we want them with us. We want them to hear the word of Allah. That's the most important thing. In our dream, all of Europe, all of America, all of Asia, all of Africa is all having the Adhan 5 times a day. That's at the end of the day is the goal. People say, oh, you want to conquer. Conquering is where you rape, you kill, you steal, you subjugate. When you give something better, that's not conquering. That's called enrichment. You are enriching the lives of those people. If you're making them healthier, better, more spiritual, better relationship, protecting them from the hellfire, all those things, that's enrichment. That is not conquering. So are we here to conquer? No. We are here to enrich. Thank you.
Actually, Brother Youssef has a very important topic about the taqwa here. Surah Al-Hujurat. Surah Al-Hujurat is 18 ayah. 18 ayah, by the way, and revealed in Medina al-Munawwar. Normally, the small ayat, small surah, revealed in Mecca. Except Al-Hujurat, Surah Al-Hujurat, 18 ayah, in Medina al-Munawwar. Why? To rebuild an ummah, nation, household. And all the ayat start, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, or we believe, except one ayah, and that's Brother Youssef mentioned. Ya ayyuhan nas. The ayah start, Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind. Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. We created male and female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We create you nations and tribes to know each other. The ayah here, continue. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ The most honorable among those nations, no tribes, that have more fear and taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what is taqwa here? Taqwa in English, fear. بس العلماء say that التقوى هي الخوف علي بن طالب رضي الله عنه هي الخوف من الجليل. You are afraid from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الخوف من الجليل والعمل بالتنزيل. Whatever Allah gave you, whatever Rasulullah take you, you take it, you follow it. Number one, العمل الخوف, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number three, والقناعة بالقليل. Whatever Allah gave you, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. The scary part here, the fourth one, والاستعداد ليوم الرحيل. To be ready when my soul leaving me to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have a chance now to speak. I have a chance to drink. I have a chance to pray. And also I had a chance not to pray, not to fast, to be nasty, do drugs, and so on, more. The last one, when we live in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the key. The ayah, إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The best among you, the taqwa. And the taqwa, everyone judge yourself. You cannot judge me, I cannot judge him. Everyone know himself. حديث الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم كل إنسان حجيج نفسه. Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم حديث. Everyone he know himself, and Allah knows exactly. Every Surah al-Jum'ah, خطبة الجمعة, unfortunately some people make poetry خطبة الجمعة, but Rasulullah always stuck with what I always mention in Surah al-Jum'ah. The ayah Surah al-Nisa, first ayah Surah al-Nisa, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقنا يا أيها الناس. The key, the most important thing in Akram, Allah is watching everything we do in our life. That if you believe in that means we have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakallah khair. Us, brothers, at time is running fast. Actually, I was waiting to go to have a liver transplant in Dallas. I was in Dallas, and my hospital was in Methodist Hospital in Dallas. So I wait for waiting list for liver transplant. I was in severe pain. One day, I called my wife, Annie. My wife, she's my doctor. I called my Annie, I need the ambulance to come to take me to the hospital. I am in severe pain. And my wife in the phone. And suddenly, the door, the door. I told my wife, alhamdulillah, the ambulance came. The ambulance came, and boom! The door of our house, and my second son with me, broke. And the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, and they catch me. I thought, what the ambulance? They arrested me. They took me in a car. The police take me. Say, let's go to the coffee shop this week. And who's outside? An airplane, and the jeeps and power. The whole air surrounded. And then they asked me, can I go to the coffee shop to speak? Coffee shop? I said, I want to go to the hospital. I'm in severe pain. Anyway, I refused to go to a coffee shop. They take me to the prison one day. And the judge is not blind. The FBI in that time, the Homeland Security, blind. Not the eyes, their heart blind. And then the judge saw me like this. He asked the FBI and the agent with the F word, if he tried to speak it, the F word, are you crazy? He's sick. Say, Your Honor, he's acting sick. He's acting sick. Say, he is sick. The judge saying that. And actually, I was in severe pain. I can't even recognize myself. And take the police, take me to the hospital right now. And believe it or not, I was in a coma completely after. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless people to help me with that. And not only that, they make a judge, they try to make like a court. What? Accuse me of something? ISIS. I have no idea what ISIS is. ISIS start when I'm sick. I have no idea what ISIS is. ISIS, what ISIS? You didn't know ISIS? I thought somebody his name ISIS. Honestly, wallahi, Allah is my witness. I thought ISIS is a person, but I have no idea. And they took my research, until now, they took my computer, my research, many research I did. And of course, the FBI agent, he was an attorney, defending me. I was free 100%, I have no problem. But the key, as far as your iman is strong, with dawah and dawah and dawah, hardship and calamity. Because what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give me attention to this ayah. Allah Azza wa Jalla, Surah Al-Ankabut, the beginning of Surah Al-Ankabut, أعوذ بالله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم فليعلمن الله الذين صدقوا وليعلمن الكاذبين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala حسب الناس. The people think we are believing Allah, strong belief in Allah. There is no trials, tribulation, hardship, just like the people before us. Adam alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam, all the prophets. But the key, فَلْيَعْلَمَنَّ, to distinguish who the truthful one and a liar. It's big. And another hadith in this time, hadith of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أشد الناس ابتلاء, the most people hardship and calamity. الأنبياء, the prophets, ثم الصالحون, the righteous people, ثم give me attention here, us, ثم الأمثل فالأمثل. And according to the end of the hadith, على قدر دينك تبتلى, according to your deen, according to your iman, I believe in Allah, I follow the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what Allah said, hardship and calamity. Life is very short. And not only that, another hadith, القابض على ديني, the one who holds his deen, القابض جمر, just like charcoal in his hand, the one who holds the deen strongly. But alhamdulillah, in this country, a free country, you can speak anything legal, of course.
What year was that?
When I arrested me, 2016.
Oh, wow.
And I went to the hospital after that. After that, I went to the hospital immediately. After I left the hospital, Allah accepted that. My point, what about the hardship calamity, especially new Muslims, with all my respect. Your new Muslims, they will attack you. What about those people? As far as you are attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, always Allah is the provider. The ayat is very important. The reason I got arrested, by the way, the ayah, the surah you recite, Surah Tawbah, and the one before Surah Al-Anfal, I make tafsir. I was in the Huda University, I was teaching. I want to explain the Surah Al-Anfal and Surah Bara'ah, Tawbah, Surah Bara'ah من الله ورسوله. Bara'ah, by the way, there's no Bismillah ar-Rahim, the only surah. That's why. But I didn't speak anything against government or Jews or this or that. I just explain what Allah said in the Quran. And after that, even the FBI came, so nothing wrong with what you're saying here. Nothing. I explained the surah and that's it. So my point, Jazakallah khair with this very important topic, and in Sunnahfollowers here, and even in our Facebook here, brother, as far as you have iman, believe, they're going to speak about you more and more and more. Hold your deen, your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, follow the sunnah, for what Allah ordered, what Allah said, and life is very short.
Yeah, this was, that surah was their, really, I said their old school attack. I mean, those of you who attended my lecture defending the messenger a few weeks ago, a month ago, we talked about Aisha. We talked about a lot of those things, but this ayah right here was the beginning of all of it. This was their first.
That this ayah actually, when Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the surah, when he conquered Mecca, when Rasulullah conquered Mecca, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq went for Hajj, and he didn't make Hajj, Rasulullah, he sent Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, because in that time they still worshiping idols, the first year. And the second year, Rasulullah, but this surah revealed after Rasulullah conquered Mecca. And the longer story will tell, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for that. Alhamdulillah, bring it in. Any question for Musa? No? Are you okay? No question? Okay. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. Brother Musa, Youssef, inshallah, gonna start not this week, the following week, but
I do have a question.
I don't have a gun here.
What happened here?
Yeah. Somebody calling, but I'm not sure. Oh, they're gonna stop now. I don't know how to stop that. Somebody is calling.
Can they still hear us?
Yes. Yeah. Can you stop it? No. Stop the person recording. Yes.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. I called twice. I muted, but I go to work 3 times. The answer. Yes.
So what do you do when you're afraid?
What?
What do you do when you're afraid? Afraid and fear. What do I do?
See, for me, like I'll answer for myself. I'll be honest with everybody here because I don't believe in lying. I had bad issue soon, like not recently. I lost basically almost all of my savings. All of it was stolen by a crypto exchange. I had left my money on there to trade with it. I had earned profit. And I left the money on that crypto exchange under the belief that basically it was safe. And they locked us out one morning and still have not gotten all my life savings at that time back. And during this time, I mean, I was about as low as I am because I got bills to pay. I had goals. I had ambitions. And you ask yourself those questions, why? Why did God do this to me? Are you even real? Why? You have to go through that thought process. But with the stronger, your resolve is, you catch these whispers coming from the shaitan very quickly. And you say, let's just wait.
Yes.
And I guarantee Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught me something out of this.
Yes.
That's going to make my life better. Every time I went through something bad, something greater came within a year or two later. When I stayed positive, I kept working, and I would just say that my life is in a lot better position, now that I still didn't get my money back. They're still fighting in bankruptcy, so I still lost all the money. But actually, I became more stronger in my beliefs. I became a happier person.
I like that.
After it. So
I like that. I love this.
it's always going to happen to you that way. I
Yes.
mean, that's just how myself. And when I lost my job in the Middle East, and over there is not like here. You lose your job there, you've got 30 days to get out. I mean, it's not like losing a job in America. I can immediately start trying to apply. And over there, they have this IQAMA system, and you got to transfer your IQAMA, and it's a big headache, And if you lose a job, I mean, they're giving you 30 days to go home. So I had to pack up the family stuff, sell whatever we couldn't take on the plane, and go and start my life all over again. It's one of the most miserable moments in my life. And ironically, I spent all my savings that time as well, coming to America, trying to find work. I was losing it. And then one day I was doing my exercise and I got a phone call from a job I actually didn't even apply for, saying, hey, can you come down for an interview as soon as possible? I was literally almost out of money. And then that got my career going in this country as well. So in your darkest hour, there comes the light at the end of the tunnel, He never forsakes.
Agree with Brother Youssef 100%. After my sickness, I lost more than $1 million. I lost that, but honestly, so the ni'mah, I lost the money. Alhamdulillah, I lost this one. And I can, by the way, I can file and get it, but Allah saved me for this money. Yes.
What's the best way to deal with Islamophobia?
Being a good person, not getting angry at them, like I explained, because we understand, we cover what the media is doing, what the newspapers are doing. We understand why they feel that way.
Yeah.
So the best thing we can do is be knowledgeable and be a gentleman or a lady.
Correct.
In the way that we debate and argue. I mean, I can't stand having a debate or a discussion with someone where they start raising their voice and yelling and cutting you off. That is not Islamic manners. That is not, how we argue. If they start doing it.
Yes. خطوة الجمعة. I spoke خطوة الجمعة yesterday. Sunnahfollowers, any question?
Yes, there's one question.
Mm-hmm.
What advice can you give to those Muslim youth who fear the non-believers and they don't fulfill certain obligations because of their fear?
Do you mean they don't fit in and this is a hardship for them or a source of depression? Is that what you mean?
Yes, that.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah,
they-
and going to school. Oh, sorry, you were saying something?
Yes, that's what they mean.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I worry with this for my kids as well because I'm 44 years old now. I was young once, long time ago. And
Still young.
still, I'm middle-aged. I'm not old or young. You're like right in the middle. And I know how important, fitting in is for young people. And this really, as parents, as Muslims, our fiercest challenge is instilling that confidence in our young people. And I really like what the Sheikh has done in this masjid. Tomorrow we have classes. I'll be bringing my kids. We had Ramadan celebrations and festivities. We had Eid celebrations and festivities. We do these talks. We have fireworks. We have karate. We want our young people to have a place to come and hang out where they fit in. And one of the themes of all my lectures is to realize that we are the cool kids. That those kids who are picking on us or picking on them in school or asking them these tough questions, in the end of the day, they live miserable lives that I talked about a few weeks ago. Living a life of kufr is a miserable life. Our young people are living the best life, they possibly can live, the most fulfilling life. And instilling that confidence. I hope that where the sister or brother who asked that question is from, that there's a good Islamic support group there. There should always be in everyone, especially in the West, these community centers where young people can meet other people and can be around positive people, positive friends. There's a very good ayah, I'm sure the perfect tajweed and the Arabic of it, the ayah that's referring to taking the Jews and the Christians as protectors. And we should only be taking our own people as protectors because they are protectors of one another. And you can see that in the West completely. The way the Christians sing the praises of Israel, but yet they don't sing any praises, as I've been talking about all day with us. Being around Muslims of like-minded is the best thing for our young people. It really is.
Very important, sister. The Imam supposed to understand his community very well. For example, our example always Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba, the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he walk on the street, he see the kids. When he see the kids, he says, "Assalamu alaikum." He smile, he shake hand with the kids, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the street, and also in the masjid. Some people actually, when they grow up, I think in Jordan also, and maybe in your country also, the kids come to the masjid, especially in the first line. No, the kids are supposed to be in the back. If you notice in our masjid, I don't care. If you are the kid in the first line, normally, if you notice, I make the kids pray next to me. Why? I encourage the kids. Plus their rights. If the imam not taking, the imam, just only halal, haram, salah, Allah, salamu alaykum, salah only, it's not enough. The imam is supposed to be everything for the community, from the babies to 100 years and more. The imam is responsible for each one in the household, in charge, not a charge, that we have to know the community very well. So it's very important for every imam to how to deal with the kids. And Ali, I want to mention Ali, give me attention to this, what he said. قال خاطب الناس على قدر عقولهم. Speak to the people according to their mentality. Their mentality. So, for example, you, how old are you? 10, how old are you? Okay, your age and your age, I have to come to your ages to understand your mentality. Now, when you come here, you always hug me and kiss me. Why?
Because I love you.
You love them. Why you love me?
For the sake of
I always give, and you become to me like a son, like a friend. I deal with you as a friend. Correct or not? You too, Dustin. How old are you? 20. I always, when I need something, I call you. Same thing, right or not? My point, the imam supposed to deal with the community regardless the age. Regardless the age, just like dealing with your own kids. I don't know how the people deal with their kids. Yeah, that's my opinion, sister.
You never hug and kiss me. I feel offended now. Funny story on that. When I first got married, in the West, we're not used to this, obviously. If a man comes in, it's like, oh, is he one of those types, you know? And my wife's father, he's got a pretty good beard. And when I got married, he came up and he kissed me. It's the Arabic-Palestinian custom.
Yeah.
And I remember at first I was taken back, but I was like, whoa. I was kind of shocked. And then I got used to it over time, and I started doing it back to them and all those fans. I was just so shocked to have a bearded man kissing me on the cheek, you know? It's like one of those cultural shock things. Even like with a lot of the Saudis, they like to hold hands.
Yes.
And
The Sunnah.
yeah, the first time one of them did that, I pulled back. I'm like, whoa, dude, you don't grab on me like that. Because in the Western culture, we've been conditioned again that that's just not appropriate. But he was actually wanting to talk to me in private, away from certain people and say something. So he was taking me by the hand and guiding me away. So I had to learn a few of those cultural differences over the years.
All right, inshallah. Time is running very fast, mashallah. We said questions? Questions, Sunnahfollowers?
No, that's all for today.
أسأل الله العظيم رب العالمين أن يجمعنا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم اهدنا جميعا فيمن هديت وأهدنا أولادنا يا رب العالمين واشف كل مريض آمين 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 اللهم صل وسلم على محمد سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك جزاكم الله تعالى وإياكم إن شاء الله.